And welcome back to SuperCoach Edge. Well, round 9 marked the third successive week of massive scores. 2,300 plus scores, the new norm? Just absolutely crazy. And the Rucks once again flew the flag with Miso, aka Miso Goni.
Miso Honey. Me love you long time.
Smashing out another monster 142, whilst Cherry Pie was a proverbial cherry on top in the last game of the round with a 186. And how about that fraud, Neale? Sunk a lot of us that gave him the honour as El Capitano, only for him to shit on our faces by producing an 81. In my Team Talk episode, you may have heard, I mentioned how he should be paraded through the streets, tarred and feathered as they did in Game of Thrones, ringing the bell and yelling, shame, shame to the masses. As you can tell, I'm dealing with it quite well. As I welcome in our guest co-host for the second successive week, I think it is, Rookie Coach. How are you?
Going well, thank you, mate. Yeah, it's the late in, pull to Chris Scott, getting the call up once again. Unfortunately, the beautiful Liam could not be here, so they go to the best substitute that they can find at the last minute. So I'm not sure what that says about me or my availability, but we did say something about being on the bike last week, so maybe that's sticking true.
Yeah, maybe it was a comfy ride of the old SuperCoach bike. Potentially, but you're also a bit of a lookalike of a bit of Tom Stewart about you as well. So maybe in the light of that, you're being brought in as the sub, late in, a bit of a niggle, but no, he's going to play, and you're definitely in for SuperCoach Edge. So pleasure to have you here as always, mate. Really do appreciate it. But of course, before we get stuck into things, let us know before we get into our, handles across socials. Where can the good people of the SuperCoach Edge community find your good self if they haven't stumbled across your work? And if they haven't yet, they've got to do it because you produce some absolutely incredible stuff. So let us know, where can we find you on YouTube?
Very simple, very easy. Just Rookie Coach AFL on X/Twitter and YouTube. You'll find all the good stuff there. Very
nice, and it is very, very good stuff. It's some of the best stuff, you could say. Ooh, and of course, you can find us on YouTube, SuperCoach Edge, of course. Give us a like, sub, hit the notification bell as well. You get a little notification when content does drop. Twitter at SuperCoach_Edge. You can find myself at DamoJ88, Liam at LiamEvans_95, Facebook, Insta, TikTok, SuperCoach Edge, and you will find us there. So let's kick things off with a brief look at how we both fared, Liam and myself, and we'll gauge how you went as well, Rook, in round 9, and then update who was victorious in Liam and I's in-season head-to-head. So I ended up scoring a 2,366. Ranking-wise, 14,037th, down 529 spots. So I was indeed one of the poor sods who had the captaincy on what should have been a relatively safe pick in Neale. And with Cherry as my second option, it lost me an extra, I think it was 105 points. And the difference in captaincy swings, I think, is normally, kind of maxed out around about 50. If you're kind of a 50-point difference, you're absolutely seething. But with this, on this occasion, and absolutely stung. It was virtually the equivalent of missing, the best captain twice over in 1 week. And speaking of a sting, I opted to play Hustwaite ahead of Lindsay, as I think many did, losing out on an extra, I think it was 44 points. So wasn't too happy with that either. But that was kind of, at that point in the round, I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty annoying. And then I thought maybe this is the height of it. It's not going to get any worse. But Neale,
you thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And Neale came through with the not the goods, the bad in this occasion. In terms of trades, I cashed out on Sartis and Brad Scott as well, by extension, and Kako as well. So I brought in Boxshall and a juicy value primo in Warner, as many did. And it worked out a treat as Warner scored 93. Sartis, again, obviously didn't play. And even if he did, he probably would have been on ground for, half of every quarter. And Kako scored a 30 with a break-even of 49, eclipsing his average of 48. So probably good trade-outs. And in terms of Flynn, he was kind of the name on everyone's lips on the weekend just gone. And I opted to have one more week, just like all chips in. I was at the table. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put all the chips in, and a bit of a, I guess a point of difference to those people trading him out. And he returned a respectable score of 80 with an increase of about 5K, which I will happily take, as it's, I feel it's Tight Ass Tuesday in my team every round at this point, given the lack of quality cash.
Tight Ass Tuesday.
Exactly. So I was, there's a scene in The Simpsons where they talk about squeezing every penny, and that's virtually what I'm doing. So happy enough with that. And Flynn was looking like dire straits at one moment because I think he was on around about the high 30s, I think maybe at halftime, maybe even three-quarter time. So it could have been way worse. So I think I'm cashing out this time around, which we'll get into in the trade segment. But I must say, in terms of my rank, and I don't know about you, Rook, we'll ask you in a second how you're going in terms of your rank, fluctuations, everything else, but a very frustrating 2025 thus far for myself because in my team talk, I spoke about plateauing, and it has continued since round 3 when I was ranked 15,026. And I've fluctuated in spots ranging from about 1 to 2K back and forth since then. Very, very annoying considering I had, I've been doing upgrades, bringing in primos, across that period and taking rookies off field. And you'd think naturally, the ranks, you should be climbing them, but not to be for the moment. But surely the tide will turn and I will smash out a big score soon enough to climb closer to the top 10K, hopefully at some point anyway. Otherwise, I'll be ranked about this point coming into the season. So at least I'm used to where I am at the moment. But it is testing my patience. But yeah, it's getting comfy, much like you're getting comfy in Liam's seat as well, I will say. But speaking of which, how did you fare on the weekend just gone?
Oh, look, it was a rough week. It didn't look on the outset look so bad. Obviously, it had Gorn captain in the chamber, so you had a feeling that was going to be a decent game, which was my saving grace for not doing as horrible. Got a 2285. Rookie roulette really ruined us. Again, Huswaite over Lindsay. And we decided to field Boxall as well after seeing an impressive first game. But Ross Lyon doing Lyon things and just ruining it for everyone. Puts questions on his playability this week as well. But yeah, just rookie roulette really killed us. We traded out Pryor and Flynn for Boxall and Warner. So one of them was a dud. Warner did enough at his price for, I think it was like a 90 odd. So can't really complain about the trade-ins. Warner should be good for the next few weeks as well. But look, overall, very much the same like you. It's a lot of fluctuations around the mark. We were sitting in the top 1%, then we dropped down to 8K, and then last week we bounced up to 4K. And then, round 9 coming to this week, we jumped back down to 8K, which was fully expected with that shocking score. Well, hopefully we see another fluctuation up to get back. So It is annoying, but again, I do keep the comparison to my first year, which was last year, where I was absolutely shocking. So it's a win. Doesn't feel like it's seeing the red when you open up after lockout, but hey, I'm taking it in my stride, and there's always things to be learned. So it's all fun nonetheless.
Yep, that's a very positive and pragmatic outlook on things. So yeah, that's just it. And like for it to be your second season as well, and you made a very good point that you should be comparing, like it's very easy to compare yourself to others. And like you're obviously ahead of me and I'm like, damn it, I wish I was like in your position. But you kind of set your expectations for your own team. And the best way to do it is compare your current season to previous seasons and kind of where you are at this point in time compared to where you were at the equivalent point in time last season. So, if you're ahead of the pack, if you're, sort of falling a little bit behind, then that kind of is a bit of a way to, I guess assess how you're going. But every season's different as well. So you've got to kind of have that outlook on things and assess it for what it is. But totally feel you there. In terms of how Liam scored, he scored a 2,322nd. Ranking wise, well, yeah, he's having one of those seasons, I think. 39,011th, increased around about 1 to 2K potentially. So he is slowly making tracks. I think he brought in Warner, which is virtually what I think everyone did. And might have brought in another rookie as well. I can't quite tell who it was, but I'll have to gauge who it was from him. But he's finally making his way back. And, head-to-head, I was lucky enough to edge out Liam, edge him in terms of SuperCoach, nothing else. Wow. With a 44-point victory. I saw your face there, Rook. And
so I thought I was going down here real quick.
Yeah, real quick. This is not quite the late night session.
I remember signing up for this.
Yeah, what is this? But anyway, 44-point victory over Liam. And I now have 7 wins to Liam's 2. And the differential now sits at 447. So that's that. But now it is time for the fun part of the episode, of course, to unveil our wrap-up of the week in parody song form in the Round Remix.
Captain Loophole, double score dream, best 18 heroes, that's the ultimate scheme. SuperCoach hustle, points on the board, every SuperCoach Edge Round Remix. Round Remix.
And this round's remix track is one that is an ode to a particular player who deserves a rev up, and a massive one at that. He defrauded us of points on the weekend, like a true criminal, cat burglar, line burglar, whatever you want to call him. For those of us that had him as captain, I think you know who it is. So let's delay no longer and hit play on what's titled Captain Fraud.
Chucky Neale, fraud's been named Captain Choice, but what a shame. Shattered dreams, low scores remain. A phantom in the losing game. Ring the bell, shame and loud. Taught and feathered in the crowd. Paraded streets, his pride gone south. Silent screams escape his mouth. Against a team that barely fights, he dimmed the stars, turned off the lights. An empty field, no points to claim. Chalky's glory went up in flame. Ring the bell, shame and loud. Taught and feathered in the crowd. Paraded streets, his pride gone south. Silent screams escape his mouth. Against a team that barely fights, he dimmed the stars, turned off the lights. An empty field, no points to claim. Chalky's glory went up in flame. A captain crashed on fantasy shore. Lost his grip, what's he good for? Once the pillar, now he bends. SuperCoach laughs at his expense. Ring the bell, shame and loud. Taught and feathered in the crowd. Paraded streets, his pride gone south. Silent screams escape his mouth.
Rook, what are your thoughts on that one? I thought it was an interesting one because they kind of worked in that I guess, mirrored analogy in a sense there, where it was kind of like, are you a fan of Game of Thrones?
I am.
Or have you watched it?
I am.
Yes.
I
Well,
am.
that moment of Cersei being paraded down the streets with the shame. I love how it was worked ever so flawlessly into the song with ring the bell, shame it loud, tarred and feathered in the crowd, paraded streets, his pride gone south, silent screams escape his mouth. Which, again, when I think of that, I think of the scene after that where I think it's the mountain is brought into her cell and Cersei leaves the mountain with him, and she's like, oh yeah, you're going to kill me. And she's like, no, we're not going to kill you yet. Here's the mountain.
Yeah. I feel like that's what you would have loved to have done to Neale after last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
honestly, because that song really encapsulates many, if not all, Neale owners. Again, another failed captaincy, which unfortunately isn't the first for many, considering that they might have fallen for it before. But I think he's banned from the armband moving forward for Neale owners. So, look, it was very true. It was very elegantly phrased, but the truth is there that something needs to change. He's a shell of the man that we used to know.
Yeah, especially considering it wasn't really due to a hard tag or anything.
No.
That's the most frustrating part. You can kind of let things slide when players are really clamped down on, but yeah, I don't know. It's a really off game by him. So
he spent a lot of time on the pine. He had Wardlaw as a little bit of attention, but again, it wasn't a consistent run with as well. Like they would split out the pack. It didn't make a lot of sense watching that game and seeing. I mean, look, as a Dunkley owner, just kiss. Amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Would have loved that.
In someone else's pain is someone else's pleasure, I suppose.
Yeah, a bit of a bit of Schadenfreude, I think. That's definitely the word for it. Very nice.
Very
Well,
much.
of that track, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you are watching us on YouTube, how you rate it amongst those that we have released. Likewise on socials. If you have any ideas for tracks coming up, anything that spawns into your mind during mid-round, whatever it may be, hit us up, Discord, socials, everything else, and we will put it into effect. Now, with round 10 on the horizon, let us jump into trade talk with The Price is Right.
The price is right.
The price is wrong, bitch.
So for those tuning for the first time, The Price is Right is the segment where we discuss potential trades and trade targets from week to week, or whether a specific player under question should even be traded at all. So let's start off with the first category of your fired. And we have first up, Riley Bice. Defender, 375.3k with a break-even of 102. And one of the biggest cash cows of the season, arguably, looks to have maxed out in value, having lost $500. That's it on the weekend. With a score of 71 and 49 in his last 2 games. He's generated 261.8k profit to date. And with that, 102 break-even has crept up. It's a great time to cash him out or use him as a stepping stone to a genuine primo. Now, Rook, what are you doing with good old Bicey?
I am electing to hold for the moment.
Yep, I don't mind it.
Is against most of the, I'd say the norm for this week, given that there is a bit of cash on his head. He is definitely a perfect trade out target to help get to that upgraded primo. However, we have the man I'm sure we'll speak about very, very soon that I prefer as a trade out target. And it falls around buy structure and buy cover. I do, yes, Bice hasn't averaged well at SCG by any means, and it could go horribly wrong. I have other fires to put out, so I think I'm electing to hold Bice for the moment. But there is a world where he does also get traded out. We'll see how the team looks come team sheets, but I think either you hold or you trade up. I think you can't go wrong with either, depending on how your team's looking.
Yep, spot on. Like it's not a one-size-fits-all type scenario because every team is different. And if you need that coverage or if you need someone of his, he still is of some sort of quality. He has been able to score well enough. If you need him in your defense to prop things up, there is definitely no qualms in holding him. So, yep, totally agree there. But we also have Jaden Short. Defender, 434.5k. Now, we had to sort of identify one player at around about this price point that I think we need to really make a verdict on. We spoke about him, I think, last week. His break-even is 109 still. But the thing is, he's been an issue. And that issue became more of an issue for coaches that owned him still because he was a late out due to knee soreness. And, we spoke about the fact that he only has the one game above 100, 7 scores below 90. And we now know there's enough of sample size. He's not going to be a top 6 defender. So if you do have him, don't hold him. I imagine a lot of people may have already punted him out if they had the trade they hadn't used yet mid-round. But if you've got him, now's the time to get rid of him. Trade him up to one of those fallen defenders, especially a Sinclair, Clark, Holmes. There's enough there, enough quality there for you to bridge that gap and get them in. Thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, it just looked like Jaden Short took a note out of Tom Stewart's book and was laid out with a knee issue. So if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, get him out of your team. As you said, there's plenty of value options that are within 100k upgrade range. So, but if there's a round to please get him out of your team, it is this round.
Yeah, exactly right. No time like the present. And let's move on to the next category, and it is in the firing line. And first up, we have, I don't know if you're referring to this man here, Caleb Daniel, midfielder, 440.6k with a break-even now, a 121. So Daniel was seen as a bit of a virtual lock, you would think. A lot of people were thinking that as a top 6 averaging forward, but things are looking a little bit shaky with his average dipping from 104.2 to 93.1 after scores of 88, 2 89s and a 51. He now sits as the 8th best forward, and last week's score of 51 from 18 disposals was his lowest tally and score for the season. And whilst it isn't really danger territory per se, the alarms are starting to ring because he has lost 20k over the past 2 rounds, and with a break-even of 121, that could continue. Now, the question here is Sheasel heading back to defence? Part of the reason why he is sort of dropping off a little bit, and maybe the She's nuts, is leaching some of his scoring. But the saving grace is that he does face Richmond this weekend, and then the Eagles coming out of his bye in round 13. But if you can't afford to hold him for his round 12 bye, if you're missing bulk players, it might be time to consider moving him on. And you spoke of the buy, and I imagine that's factoring into your decision to punt him.
Definitely is. I'm someone that owns Sheasel, Shera, PDK, Daniel, and a couple others on that buy as well, Ed Richards. So there's a few that don't fit well in the team, and if I have to chop someone, it's Daniel, and that is half the equation. The other equation is he around the mark? He still is within the top 10 range at the moment, but if we follow the suit of what we've been seeing lately, Shees is probably staying in that halfback role, which means it's definitely dipping into Daniel because they're looking for Sheasel instead of Daniel. Daniel's grace plays kick-ins, don't get me wrong. As I said, it's very much a buy situation. You may not have to trade him out if you're okay for your round 12 buy. He's definitely a hold if you can facilitate it and not be too damaged, during that buy round. But again, if you have 6 players and you want to try and trim the damage on round 12, he's the perfect candidate to use up. He's got enough cash where you can move down to a Phillippa if you want to go early. You can move up to a Warner, a Track. You can get back into Horn Francis if you need to, or Rankin. Or you swing him into the midfield with that DPP and start getting in some absolute uber primos with that cash.
Yep, totally agree there. And yeah, the kick-ins as well. Like on the weekend, I think it was for the first time for the past month anyway, she's actually had more kick-ins than Daniel. So, and yeah, she's, as we know, an incredible user of the footy by boot and by hand. But just in terms of
kick-ins... Do we think
kick-ins,
Kane Corns would think the same though?
No. He would say that he's as useful as a cardboard cutout, probably. Poor Shees. Yep. But yeah, that's a very good point. And I think it's, again, not a one-size-fits-all. I'm very much in the camp of, I'm sort of edging towards getting rid of him. Again, edging. But it's either him or Chera. They're around about a similar sort of price point, similar break-evens, and, kind of need someone of that price point to get up to where I'm looking to get to, which is trying to get both a Sinclair and a Clark into my team in the 1 week. So someone has to go. But I'm like, yeah, he's facing Richmond. I know Richmond give up bulk points to defenders. Is it worth it? I don't know. So I've still got to kind of work things out there. And even if I keep Daniel, I think for this week, more than likely I'll probably use him as a stepping stone in the next week or two anyway. So he doesn't fit well with my buy structure either. So I don't think I can hold him for that. So yeah, I think you need to really assess where things are at with your team, how he fits in with your team. And if you need to punt him, then think about that very, very strongly. But let's move on to the next guy, Caden Cleary, forward. 259.3k, break even of 55. Now, he has done his job making his cash to the tune of 135.2k, and it's time to consider cashing him out potentially. His break even now sits a smidge below his season average of 60.7 and in need of a spike score to continue making coin for us. For me, I'm going to keep him, but I think if you need someone to cash out and really, find a bit of money to fund an upgrade elsewhere, I can see reasons for doing so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm personally also holding him as well. I think most might be looking at a Kako or a Cleary to trade out in that similar position to use that extra bit of cash. Somehow Cleary's made more cash than Kako in this
incredible
short time span. So,
yeah.
And we have seen a spike score in the 80s from Cleary, whereas we are still waiting for that spike score from Kako that we were led to believe. We were edged at the start of the season from that 90 plus that we saw from Kako and have not seen a lick since. So yeah, I think perfect. Again, most of these guys, very team dependent. It's either a hold or a trade, whatever suits your structure. I'm personally holding. I think even if he doesn't do the spike score, he'll be close to around the mark where he's not going to bleed too much cash.
Exactly. And a bit of a segue there. You've mentioned him, Isaac Kako. So he's a mid-forward, 234.5k, break-even of 49. And we always knew Kako would be a slow burn, but this is just ridiculous. With a season high score of 62, he is only managing an average of 48.8. And with his break-even now at 49, it's time to consider, hilariously, whether it's worth cashing out on the 85k he has generated already. Because he's not really going to offer you much in terms of scoring, you'd say, across your buys. So, he's going to be virtually like as a player that's been injured and subbed out potentially at halftime. That's sort of the full-time equivalent score that he can produce, Kako.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw Gross come in and do more than what Kako does in a full game. So
yeah, and that was in like 10 minutes or something.
yeah.
Poor Kako. But let's move on to the next guy, and it is Matt Flynn, Ruckman, 384.9k, break even of 97. And whilst many cashed out on Flynn before round 9, he is once again on the agenda as a trade-outs prospect for those that held. He was able to crawl his way to an 80 after struggling for a majority of the match against Richmond, but thankfully made his break even, with his low disposal efficiency of 31% largely holding him back. And whilst BJ Williams was brought in as ruck assistance, it was lucky the absence of Oscar Allen meant Williams had to be shifted forward, allowing Flynn to be more often than not the number one. But it still saw his ruck percentage dip to a season low, 67%, which doesn't bode well if this shared duty does continue, and especially if Oscar Allen makes his return to the team. He's made 127.6k, so it may be a good time to sell this investment as it becomes a little more uncertain.
Yep. Couldn't agree anymore. As I got rid of him last week, and I think the time is nigh for Flynn. He's got a decent amount of cash on him. You could use him with a Daniel to really bolster up your team at the moment with some absolute value, or you can lock in a top liner and get even a Philippou. Like there's so much cash there that you can make some really bold moves and statements with your team this week to help either have a point of difference and climb those ranks or stop the bleeding with some blockers.
Love it. And yeah, that move to Philippou, for example, will give you around about 70k. So, someone that many of us thought Philippou could be that value pick. So to go from a value pick in Flynn to now cashing him out and going for another one and banking a little bit of coin is definitely a bonus. So a very, very good call. Now, this other guy here, Sam Powell-Pepper, forward, 389.7k, break even of 111. Every time I speak his name, it makes me shiver a little bit because I know that I punted him after he made about 18k or something, if that. And he's gone on to profit 209.2k in total. And it's just absolutely crazy. It hurts me. It hurts me. Scored a 53 on the weekend. Now, that did hand him an 8k loss on the profit that he has made, but at this price point that he's at, I think it's a great time to cash out investment or use him as a stepping stone to a genuine primo.
Yep. Again, perfect price point is that break even's right up there. So you couldn't ask for a better time to cash someone out at that awkward buy. You're going to be able to bring in an absolute keeper for that line, hopefully, or you can swing it around. So much versatility with Flex and DPP nowadays. You can practically move him to get anyone you want. Again, perfect trade out at target. If I had him, I would have loved to have had not only the field points, but also the cash to use him. But alas, I got rid of him in round 3, as did you. And we've kind of been left with a bit of a hole of a bald head that we can't kiss. But
exactly. If only. It's a very kissable head.
That's it.
You'd be running the other direction,
shiny.
though.
Very shiny. It'd be a Napoleon kiss and run.
Kiss and run.
Yeah, but no. But if you got him in team, trade him out, get him up to an absolute primo, and Bob's your uncle.
Yep, couldn't have said it better. Moving on to the next guy, and it is someone that I am personally holding, but I can see kind of fits into the category of maybe a Cleary that you may need to trade out if you're looking for a bit of cash to pull from somewhere. Elijah Hewitt, mid forward, 287k with a break even of 46, and I guess after a run of games featuring some pretty good scores, 97, 65, 91. That saw his price increase nearly 100k. He has only managed, however, a 33 against Richmond on the weekend. And there was really no rhyme or reason to it, with 50% CBAs up from the previous game when he scored a 91 from just 35% CBOs. It just maybe looked like he was a little bit gassed. We know he's been struggling with, injury and everything else, limited preparation. So maybe it was just one of those games. But his break even now has jumped up slightly, but is still attainable. It's just if you needed, as I said, someone to cash out on to fund the upgrade of another primo, he might be one to consider.
Yeah, I very much lean into more of the hold camp with Elijah Hewitt. The DPP playing at home this week, I think it's ticking all signs. And as you just said, there was no rhyme or reason as to what changed. So the role hasn't changed. The role still has the goods to provide the high scores that we've seen previously. I think it just, again, as you mentioned, maybe you're just a bit burnt out, couldn't keep up. Maybe you just need a bit of a rest. Maybe he gets that through the week. Hopefully he does not get rested for holders.
Or subbed.
Or subbed. We'll see what happens there. But no, I would be leading into a hold. Again, I think the DPP of him and he's a playing rookie, and we both know what the crisis is like at the moment.
Yep.
The 44 definitely isn't something to be scared of. I think he'll be fine and he'll bounce back. And we'll see if we can call back to this. I'm going to put him at a 76 for this week.
Oh, very nice. I like that. I reckon a score in the 70s is definitely attainable. It's almost every second week now as well that he's kind of gone up, down, 97, 65, 91, 33. Maybe he's due another 90 score. Maybe against the Saints.
I'd be a little bit disheartened if he did, because I don't own him, but that's okay.
Oh, you're speaking as if you own him. So I was like, oh, you're on the same page as me. But
I like to pretend sometimes.
Yeah. You can live vicariously through me.
Yes, I pretend I owned Hewitt and Reed and SPP.
That's me. I still pretend that SPP is still there at F6.
Yeah.
If
a
only.
bit of Photoshop on the team just to.
Yeah. Just photoshopping that bald head as well for just added effect with the shine coming off it. Amazing. But let's round things out in this category with Clary Oliver. Midfielder, 457.6K, break even of 109. And over half of those that own Clary jumped ship, and I was one of them, after he missed round 8. And of those 21.1% of owners that kept the faith, they were unfortunately not rewarded, where he scored only a 64. He has only scored above 100 once for the season, and that was a 130 against North Melbourne of all teams, with 6 scores ranging from 80 to 90 odd. But that isn't going to cut the mustard as a potential keeper that we hoped that he would be. He'll need a spike score against the Lions this weekend to turn things around, but with a break-even of 109 and having lost 10.5K on the weekend, it would seem that time to jump off is nigh. Now, are you an owner of Clary, or did you jump ship like the rest of us?
I jumped ship like the rest of everyone. Well, most people did. Just seeing kind of the writing on the wall a little bit. Not that anyone could predict that Clayton Oliver 2025 tagger was going to be a thing that existed. But given the state of what's happening and how his role is shifting now, again, we thought we had old Clary back. Not the case at all. And now the role's suddenly up for grabs and changing. Look, maybe when Viney comes back, it goes back to standard role. But again, even then, we didn't really see enough to go, yes, he's a keeper. So if you want to keep a chair out through the buys and you want to use someone with a bit of cash more than your rooks to make a move, I think Clary's a perfect trade candidate to get out of your team.
Exactly. And Jack Viney is due back in. It says 1 to 2 weeks according to their injury list at Melbourne. So just hopefully he's not the tagger. Because that would really seriously burn. But
it would burn not only the Clary owners, but also the Neale owners.
Oh my god!
The pain continues.
Exactly. We'll need another song to follow up that. I think if Neale, if he gets tagged out by Clary, come on, that's just comedic. Surely not.
Again, as a Dunkley owner, this is music to my ears.
Exactly. Schadenfreude just coming through with the goods.
Yep.
Let's move on to the trading candidates. And we have, first up, Jack Sinclair, defender midfielder, 529.3K with a break-even of 106. And it's crazy to think we are now getting Sinks at a 62.9K discount on his starting price, considering that he was priced 120K more expensive than he is now when he was at round 5. And a lot of that was due to a dip in scoring with a 125.6 average, simply impossible to maintain at that point, with scores of 70, 99, and 83 in recent weeks. But he had a nice return to form against Carlton with a 124, and it would seem regular programming has resumed. And when we're talking about value primos, he is definitely one to consider as a probable top 6 defender. Thoughts on him?
Look, I'm a little bit jealous that the one I grabbed at his almost starting price, I think I paid just under 6 for him, is now much, much cheaper. So you guys are getting a massive deal on him. I don't know what more you could want from a pick, in all honesty. I shouldn't have to sell you on Sinclair. I mean, the hair, dash, when he brings out the long sleeves, ooh, you just know. But no, I think the role, and then probably we kind of saw St Kilda roll with Nazira up in more transition periods. We look at the heat maps and everything of those low point games. It was very much accountable in that back line. Again, taking kick-ins and all that sort of stuff, which did save a really poor score. But again, when they're rolling through different transitions, Sinclair just is able to do multiple things. We saw him have a nice run-through contested pickup goal last week as well, which is beautiful. Thanks for the spike score. Yeah, there's literally nothing more to say. He is absolute value at his price at 529. He's got the best buy of the buy rounds. He's going to even out some teams. And if it's a buy to Sinclair, I think you've got an absolute bargain on your hands.
And that is the trade that I'm doing. Buy to Sinclair.
Love it.
It's like walking into the op shop being like, this is vintage.
Yep.
And I know what this can provide me because he's done it for me in the past. I'm going to grab this jacket, the Sinks jacket, the long sleeve, whack it on, and add him to my team. So,
and you also go to the wig section and grab the black mullet and just really get into it.
That's and the seedy porn star mustache as well, which is kind of like got a bit of stubble on at the moment. So, give me maybe half a day, and I'll have a full on twirl mustache because it grows that quick. But much like yourself as well, you've got a bit of the beard look, long locks, everything else.
Need to clean it up. It's a bit rough around the edges, but that's how we like it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how we do like you, Rook. So you've hit the nail on the head there. Well, let's move on to the next guy, and it is Saad Al-Houli, midfielder forward, 155.7K with a break-even of 19. And it's yet another week where new cash cow options on the bubble are scarce, so it's time to get creative, and that could be in the form of the hyphen, as I'll call him, Saad Al-Houli. He has played 4 games, but he is still at a low enough price point due to being a sub in his first 3 games. And having scored 67 after being activated as a sub early in his second game for a virtual full game, and scoring 69 on the weekend, ding, ding, dinner for 2, as we say, in his first proper non-sub game, the hyphen has shown an ability to score. And he's also got the added bonus with that handy DPP swing that could come in handy, especially for those that own a homes on the opposite line to the hyphen himself. Have you got him in your team already? And if not, is he on the horizon for you?
I grabbed him a couple of weeks ago just to, one, hope he didn't cop the vest or anything like that. And then he ended up doing very such things. Thank you, Brad Scott. But again, I picked him up early for that DPP swing. But as for this week, given the lackluster choices that we have, he looks like he's taking over that wing role for Darcy Jones, I believe, who's obviously had that horrible injury. But again, we hope to see him kind of avoid the vest now. We think he's done his time. Maybe Brad Scott's going to play nice for a little bit and give him that wing. Again, has the ability to score 65 plus, which we've seen now, even in a sub-affected game. So it's all looking very promising. Again, it is Essendon. Don't really know. We see Sardis as a perfect example. He's someone who has all the potential, still somehow can't get a gig. So it is taking a risk, as most of us do when we choose our rookies to downgrade to. But from the group of rookies that maybe dropped, maybe sub, I think the most pleasing, attractive one is Al-Houli at the moment. So I definitely have no qualms bringing in Al-Houli. DPP is viable, can provide on-field scoring if needed in a disaster week.
Yep, exactly right. And he's the best of I wouldn't sort of classify him as a bad bunch, but he's probably one of the more attractive prospects, as you said, that even though he's been the sub, multiple times, it kind of just seems as though now that he does have that opportunity that has been opened up through injury to other teammates. And he's shown an ability to score as well, which is ever so crucial. And I had Gross on my team that week that he was on the bubble. And then I was at the North Melbourne Carlton game and saw that he was a sub. And I'm like, well, okay, let me switch that to Al-Houli. And with that DPP comes in handy as an owner of homes as well. So that is another thing to factor in. Let's move on now to Dane Zorko, defender, 531.9K with a break-even of 53. And following a dry patch of form that's seen him drop 120K, Zorko finally delivered with his high score of the season with a 166 against North Melbourne. It was genuine piggery from 39 disposals and 8 marks, just snout in trough action, really. And with such a low break-even, we may not see Zorko at this cheap price point again, so it must be factored into trade plans off the back of that alone. Having said all that, however, I will have a little disclaimer here, and it's to do with that bloke named Coleman. And don't know when he's going to come into the team, when he's going to be fit enough, but I'm a little bit, not worried, but I'm a little bit weary about the impact that he may have. It may be negative in the case of, say, a Sheasel on Caleb Daniel, or it could be maybe just as good. Maybe it doesn't impact him too much. Maybe he loses a few kick-ins, but, is the first chain in the, possessions with kick-outs from Coleman to Zorko, so on and so forth. But we'll just have to wait and see. But what are your thoughts on Zorko? Do you own him? If you don't, are you thinking of bringing him in?
Yeah, so I started with him. So I haven't had the most negative experience owning Mr. Piggy himself, given that we had the amazing run to the start of the season where it was kind of okay to cop the low scores as a balancing act, I suppose. Obviously the Coleman's the major talking point at the moment with bringing in Zorko. However, what I will prompt people to think about is if he does come in, he's essentially filling in Fletcher's role if Fletcher moves up to the wing. Has Fletcher really negated Zorko all that much? Not really. So can we expect Coleman to do more? Maybe, just because maybe it is a different style of player potentially. But if it's a very similar role, then maybe it's kind of negates itself ever so slightly. Or maybe there's games where, because we've seen Fletcher do 90s and kind of 80s pretty consistently, while also having Zorko do 80s and 90s and maybe a couple spikes or drop-offs here and there. I'm not too worried, given the price, given the buy that he has. If it fits all and ticks all the boxes for you, I say by all means get him in. If you are that worried about Coleman and you'd rather take a risk somewhere else, perfectly fine too. He is old. Let's not remember, this is a 36-year-old, 46-year-old man. He just gave us a 166 in SuperCoach, which is amazing. But again, we know the role. We know he's Mr. Piggy. We know the personality we're buying into. Doesn't tick all the boxes. Sinclair's there right for the picking.
Yep, exactly. Now you summarised it perfectly there. Let's move on to Max Holmes, defender midfielder, 498.7k, break even of 67. And with a very handy 134 against the Giants, Holmes arrested his price fall and now sits 35.2k cheaper than his starting price. And as the Cats' genuine number one mid, the only drawback is he has the ability to attract the tag from the opposition. But to counter this, Scott has at times thrown Holmes back into his old role in defence. So it is, at least a bit of a get-out option to protect his scoring. However, we know that Tom Stewart isn't there. And when Tom Stewart's in defence, maybe a little bit of a clash. But as a Cats man, what little insights can you offer us, Rook, in terms of Holmesy? And are you an owner? Would you bring him in?
So he's very much on the cards for me to bring in at that price at the moment because I can make some pretty big moves this week, and he's the only one I can afford. So maybe a forced evil upon. It's Holmes is given again. We've seen a bit of a roller coaster. Again, not horrible scores, even in the tag realm of 70s to 80s, even some low 90s as well. So not worst case. The real part that draws people into Holmes is that home stretch after the bye. He has such a nice fixture, playing Richmond twice in the last 6 rounds as well, which is so juicy. And look, outside of Smith, Holmes is the next transition player, the next one that's got the run to really be at every stoppage or have those impactful plays. Now, yes, Stewart has been in and out, late or early. There's probably a time where they're just going to give him a month off if it keeps persisting like this. You've got Lawson Humphreys in as well. There might be some of people that might be looking at Buse. Don't do it, just ever so quietly. But look, Max Holmes, overall, there are going to be some negative things, such as the next 2 games aren't the easiest, may cop attention. However, I believe if you were confident he is around the mark for top 6, you trade him in now. You manage your expectations for some lower scores for the next 2 weeks, just understanding that he's going to be really beneficial to your team for that home stretch.
Well put. And yeah, that's one of those things as well. Like with Holmesy, I've got him on my team. I started him in my starting side, and I've been very, very happy with him. I mean, he does have those scores where he is impacted by tags and whatnot, but like you mentioned, it's kind of if that's his floor, like scores in the 80s, I'll take it because nobody can produce with those high ceiling scores, and we saw it on the weekend. So, kind of take the highs with the lows, manage expectations, as you rightly said, and really enjoy things on the home stretch because he's going to be producing some very, very nice scores.
On the home stretch.
Exactly. That's just it. Well, let's move on to another candidate, and it is Jordan Clark, defender, 519.9k with a break-even of 103. And Clark has been incredibly consistent, scoring 100 plus in 7 of his 9 games. And his score of 146 on the weekend was his highest of the season. But it was his score of 58 against the Saints in that wacky, ultra-congested game that saw his price take the biggest hit with a loss of 21.3k. You can now get him at 43.8k discount on his starting price, and he's ranked as the 7th best defender on offer. The bonus also is that he's a bit of a pod compared to higher owned primos at just 10% ownership. Of course, that will rise after this round, you'd expect, but still, with those massive scores and the one like he had on the weekend, that benefits you greatly as a pod. So something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I was so close to getting Clark in last week instead of Warner. I just had a feeling the gut was telling me things, and I decided not to listen because the value game was, I don't know, it's hard to pass
The pool
up
was
value
too strong.
Warner. The pool was too strong.
Yep.
But look, yeah, currently ranked 7th. The counter argument to Clark is I see a lot of people talking about maybe this is the spike score that we were waiting for that we may not see again. We've seen him kind of struggle to get to the tons, but he has been very, very consistent. The run home isn't as great for defenders for Freo, especially if they decide to mix up the play style and move back into a Ryan sort of play style where we've seen him kind of had a bump up in numbers of recent. So there are things to be concerned about, but again, for the price of, was it $5.19? That is absolute value. Again, perfect buy.
Yep.
What more could you want from an upgrade perspective? If you already have your Holmes and your Sinclair and you're looking to really bolster that defensive line and get a rookie off field, I really don't think you can look past Clark.
Yep, exactly. Value in that. The buy is a big thing as well that I haven't really thought too much about, but it's going to benefit you greatly. With the amount of buys that we've got, and there are a couple of rounds there where we're kind of left a bit high and dry, where he's going to come in very, very handy. So something to consider. But another guy to consider as well is, I think, the bloke is probably going to be the D1. It's Lockie Whitfield. Defender,
cannon.
591. Yes, exactly right. 591.6k with a break even of 123. But Whitfield has been uber consistent in 2025 and currently sits as the number 1 ranked defender, averaging 117.6. The only thing, I guess, the only thing, but one of the big things that we love about Whitfield is his insanely high floor with only one score below 100, which was an 86, with his next lowest two being 104 and 109. And he also has a very high ceiling, as we know, with scores of 128, 145, and 148, and averaging 1.17 points per minute across all of his 9 games, which is an insanely consistent rate of scoring. He takes kick-ins, has a crazy high disposal efficiency of 78%, and loves to kick more often than he handballs at a rate of 2 kicks for every handball. He'll no doubt remain as a top 6 averaging defender, and you might not get him much cheaper than his 6.5k discount on his starting price at the moment. It doesn't sound like much, but in the grand scheme of things, this guy could never be this price again. So either way, if you're in the market for a defender, strongly consider Whitfield.
You really can't put an argument up to not get Whitfield. He is, without argue, the number 1 defender at the moment. He's got a clear 4-point gap against the D2 at the moment on averages, which is Zorko, who is next in line. Now, again, we call him the glass cannon for a reason because we all kind of hide a little bit when we see him take a big hit. And it's happened a few times in the last few weeks where he's taken a little bit more time to get up than what we'd like to see. But he seems a little bit stronger. Maybe he's had some cement since last season. He seems a bit tougher, which is what we love to see. But again, the run as well for the next 3 weeks is pretty juicy for GWS for defense. So again, Lockie Whitfield being, you just can't sell him hard enough. He's D1. You have to find some way to get him in at some point. And it may not seem as a discount, but you're basically getting him for starting price, which is not worst case. Worst case is paying $680 for a Tristan Sherry. But
yeah,
do it. Just do it. Don't come and ask comments and questions and talk about scenarios. If you have an opportunity at Whitfield in and you already don't have him, just do it. Save yourself the pain and the headaches of trying to figure out who's your D5, D6, figure out your D1 and get Whitfield in. Case closed.
Yep, exactly right. Spot on. And another guy that I myself am strongly considering, it is someone that I think a few people own across the competition, Connor Rosie. Now, he is currently a midfielder. Not for long. It may change to a defensive midfielder. 535.6k with a break-even of 105. So he has transformed himself into a pig off halfback, averaging 114 in his past 5 games in this new role compared to 99.5 in his opening 4 games where he's being played in his traditional role as a midfielder. That average would have him ranked second behind Whitfield of all defenders and fourth of all midfielders. The cherry on top is he is being rotated through the kicking duties as well, having taken 14 and played on in all of them, which is a big tick. And you must know that he's a lot of people own him in SuperCoach. So tip of the old cap to you, Rose. And is all but locked to be given defensive midfielder status as things stand, and it would seem his role off halfback isn't going to change anytime soon, with Farrell sidelined for a month due to an injury, which solidifies his spot down back.
Again, one of those ones you really don't have to try hard to sell. That role is seemingly sticking with Farrell out as well. You imagine he's going to get more shares of the kick-ins. Even Bergman doing some tagging in the midfield and moving around the ground. There's so many opportunities for Rosie to have more spike scores. If you have the ability to grab him in and not have to worry about buy structure for that round, it makes absolute sense. He's at a really good price. I am unfortunately having to wait until after buy to pick him up. So I will be watching from behind the couch while he gets these spike scores between then. But again, he as you said, he is just right behind Whitfield in regards to averages and scores in this new role. He is definitely going to be a top 6. There's no question about it, so long as he doesn't get thrown into the midfield and things change. Fingers crossed. Again, you just need to get him in at some point. I need to wait till after buys, but before that, if you can facilitate it, look no further.
Indeed, look no further. Have a bit of a sip of the old rosé. It goes down smooth. Next up, we have Mateus Philippou, midfielder forward, 313.8k with a break-even of 50, and did return on the weekend for his first game of the season and scored a 78 first up, kicking 2 crucial goals for his side. He played a majority of his time up forward in managed minutes and wasn't played through the middle at all. Now, we all remember his late season run of games when he finally hit his straps, playing consistently through the engine room, scoring 112, 101, 85 and 80 in the last 4 games of the season. But it would seem his scoring, almost more so his ceiling scores, is somewhat role dependent. So it might be worth waiting until we see Ross Lyon, start to rotate him through the middle a little bit more and sort of reclaim that old role. He's only played the 1 game, so we have the luxury of waiting and assessing his role, form and fitness before his price changes. But I don't mind the play, potentially, a bit of a pod play, to get him into your team a little bit early as that point of difference. What are your thoughts, Rook?
Yeah, it's, again, the SuperCoach Bible will say for rookies and these sort of players is you wait for those first 2 games to get a really good look at a player before bringing them in. However, as you just said, pod plays can work in your favor. And if you need a semi-upgrade, semi-downgrade from a Daniel or an upgrade from a Cleary without having to try and facilitate 2 major upgrades, maybe you want to keep cash in bank to keep the trade cadence moving forward. Look, we've seen Ross talk to the media about slowly working him back into the mid-time. So it is probably inevitable that we are going to see that happen. How long does it take? How much CBAs does he get? All things to be answered in due time. But if you did want to go a bit early, like myself, who may be considering it, I think there's no better time when he's coming up against the West Coast Weagles.
Exactly. And it's that matchup that has me thinking very, very hard about getting the poo in early. Even though all of my instincts are saying getting the poo, not the wee.
Almost lost me.
Getting the Scat Man in. Probably call him the Scat Man. He's the it's a nice little nickname for him.
It is.
I'm the Scat Man.
Something to consider nonetheless. I mean, it depends on your risk, I guess, factor, how much you want to risk versus the potential upside of getting him in as a pod if he does pop off. But yeah, something to
I'll put it
consider.
this way. If anyone is at the same risk factor as me who took a pint on Newcomb, of all players, then we are fine to grab you.
Exactly. This is just a drop in the ocean compared to Nuke, isn't it?
It is. And the word on the street, if you haven't seen already, is myself, Goobs from Swordplay, and the local legend in the community, I Don't Like Cheese, somehow decided we're VCing Nuke this week.
Oh, wow.
We're committed
that's
to the
one
VC.
Way, that's one way to nuke your VC.
Don't remind me.
Nuke by name.
I
Nuke
don't
by
know
nature.
how we got here. I don't know what caused it, but we're here nonetheless. We're committed. We don't back out when we say we're going to do something. So I'll be looking to a very safe captaincy this week.
Oh, yeah, hopefully that's the case. And hopefully it's not a Neale type situation.
No.
Because then you'll be hating on Nuke even more, I reckon.
Yes. Look, he's already in the doghouse, let's be honest, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Can't win all our picks.
Yep, exactly right. That's the nature of it. And you got to take risks some point, and some pay off, some don't. But let's move on to another guy, and it is a bit of a left field one, but we mentioned him for a reason. It is Liam O'Connell from St Kilda, defender, 136.8k with a break-even of -11. And having played 5 games, it may seem strange to see this bloke at this price, but it's due to an injury-affected score of 3 in his 3rd game. And he missed time and played 2 VFL games before returning to the Saints senior side in round 8 and 9 for scores of 43 and 49. By no means are expectations there for him to be a moneymaker, given his role and the fact he's averaging 40.5 points per game. Very much like maybe a Kako of defence. But Ross does seem to like him in his side. So it seems like he has okay job security. And despite minimal disposal numbers, he is actually scoring decently enough. And it's to do with his very high disposal efficiency percentage with 86%, 100%, 83%, and 100% in his 4 non-injury impacted games. This provides a solid scoring floor and indicates he has the potential to perhaps have a bit of a spike score at some point. Maybe. Who knows? It's not the most appealing cash cow option, but he could be a downgrade option that is at least playing, a bit of a warm body, as we call it, and providing a smashed glass in case of emergency option if you need cover across the buys. But, I mean, that kind of speaks to the nature of what we're dealing with in terms of options for cash cows and rookies, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going through the reject shop of rookies. We're going through. we're going to the black markets. We're going to AliExpress.
AliExpress, yes.
To find where these rookies are at. Now, I actually do love, with the Dougal Howard injury, I do love the chances of O'Connell having some nice job security. And again, it is just a warm body. One, to help cover through buys, worst case. And you're going to take a 50, let's be honest, in buy rounds as an extra score rather than a donut. But there's also a chance that he's going to make cash as well. Even if he only makes 100K, just over, just under. Better than having a donut and a red dot there that you're going to loot with another red dot, which may not actually work for you. So I will personally be bringing him in because of the DPP that I have with Al Hooley to bring him into the midfield, where the rookies are even worse this week. But that is just personally me. Again, I'm sure there's some people will quickly touch on in a little bit, which you might have to go early on, but do look promising.
Exactly. And I'm very much, the thing that gets me with him is obviously job security is a little bit better, as you mentioned, with the injury to Dougal Howard, but the buy as well. Like he's going to actually provide coverage across every buy, bar that was at round 13 that he's got. So don't really have to worry about that. And it's easy to cover. St Kilda Freo plays around 13. So for me, he gets a big tick. Now, there's another guy who'll round us out here in this category. Before we get on to those 2 awful rookies on the bubble, one of which is okay, but the other one, meh. There's actually another guy as well who's just a non-factor, but we mentioned him. And then, of course, there are those guys on the one game, as you did allude to, that are potential options. Now, we do have Chang. Now, I don't know how to pronounce his full name. You might do a better job than me.
CJ. We'll just call him CJ.
Changkuth Giath. How's that? Midfield defender, 387.4k with a break-even of -38. And I know we've had to be creative this season, right, in terms of cash generation, using the likes of Flynn, Marriage at inflated price points. But does CJ fit the same billing? Now, his price took a little bit of a hit after being the sub in round 6, and he then went back to the VFL before returning to score that 135 and 132 against Richmond and Melbourne in recent weeks. But be very, very wary, as he came in and benefited in scoring and roll off the back of Scrimshaw being concussed and missing those 2 games that CJ has scored well in. He's due back Scrimshaw this round, and it could have an impact on CJ's scoring, as it was only in round 6 when Scrimshaw returned to the side where we saw CJ relegated to that sub role. So a little bit of a connection here between both of these lads. which gives an insight into that defensive pecking order as well. That negative 38 break even is tempting, I know, on the surface, but the question is whether the investment is worth it in terms, of looking longer term. For me personally, I don't think so. You'll get that sugar hit first up. Sure, he may make about 40, 50K, if that, but then that's probably all he's going to make. So for me, it's a no.
And I couldn't agree any more. And the perfect reason is we see a pattern here as well. If we also look at Sicily, we
Yes.
saw that the last 2 weeks, not only was Scrimshaw out, but Barras was rested last week as well in preparation for this week. And in both games, we saw CJ have a spike score and Sicily do a little bit more than he usually does as well. With all that in mind, and that's probably all you need to put the nail in the coffin, if you just look at CJ's previous scoring history, the 134s are anomalies. We haven't seen him even get close previously, especially this year. Yes, that negative 38 is so teasing. It is so tempting because you just want that sugar hit of that plus 50K. But as Damo just said, it might be all you get. And then you're kind of stuck. Yep. So it's a big no from me. I have toyed with it, even toyed with Sicily. But again, that pattern of the outs that were the last 2 weeks, given Sicily's a swingman as well, definitely probably steer clear of those two. And honestly, if you were thinking about going Bice to CJ, just hold Bice. They have a trade.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly right. And there's more value in that trade compared to the value of getting CJ for that sugar hit and then being stuck with him and having to use another trade for, who even knows if, longer term he actually keeps the money that he increases. If you have to hold him longer term, he may actually make that money and then maybe lose it if he loses that really nice role, which I think he probably will. But let's move on to On the Bubble to round things out. And first up, we have Hugh Boxall, midfielder, 113.5K with a break-even of negative 29. In his first game, he had really positive points per minute with 1.1, given he scored 75 in just 71 minutes game time, which highlights how immense his impact was. Now, the thing that does put a bit of a dent in, I guess his scoring prowess, and we saw that against Carlton, didn't yield the same output with a score of just 38. The one thing that holds him back, his poor disposal efficiency, with 50% disposal efficiency across his first 2 games. But the upside with Boxall is he's being given crucial CBAs with 39% and 46%. The question is whether he keeps his spot in the Saints side longer term. But if he is named, he's worth a gamble, I think, due to limited cash cow options on offer at present. He's in my team, brought him in last week, took the gamble, and to the eye, he's passed the eye test for me. I really rate him as a player and had a little bit of a run with roll as well against Carlton, and probably wasn't afforded the opportunity to win his own ball at various stages, I think, due to that responsibility. But I think he will stick around. Ross Lyon has shown that he has been given a little bit more, I guess, extra time to some of his rookies, O'Connell and the like. So don't mind him at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of us may have gone early. I'm guilty last week where we're kind of already stuck with him a little bit and got the unfortunate poor score. But again, if he is named and not sub, again, it's going to be very tricky because he is the last game of the round. So if you pick him, you just kind of have to commit. Just don't field him or anything like that. If you just need him to facilitate it, he's named. And then just make sure you check team sheets on Friday night to see extended benches. All things considering, he's the perfect downgrade option. He's at a nice, lucrative price of 113, I believe, for a rookie, which is pretty nice. Gives you a little bit more flexibility rather than having to pay up for an O'Connell or a 150 for someone else as well, such as an Al-Hooley. Yeah, he's definitely there. If he is a warm body and does maintain a role, again, nothing on the play himself. He has all the potentials, as Damo said, passes the eye test with flying colours, in my opinion, as well. Just whether Ross Lyon likes him enough to give him a run, or is he going to give him the good old Garcia treatment from last year?
Yeah, hopefully not. Well, I don't think he's copped a spray on the bench, so he's already ahead of Garcia on that front. But let's move on to the last 2 players on the bubble, and they're not that good, actually, and probably contingent upon team sheets, even more so than Boxall. And it is Oscar McDonald, defender for Freo, 119.9K with a break-even of negative 64. Has played 2 games for scores of 50 and 85. Played a defensive role, but also served as a backup ruck for Darcy whilst Jackson was out. So there is a potential he comes back into backup for Darcy backup Jackson if Darcy misses due to that jarred knee. Now his knees are bloody shot, but the sounds of it. As for his long-term job security, it seems it's contingent upon best 23 players being out of the side through injury for him to get an opportunity, which isn't the best. Don't know if he's going to actually play this week, but thought we'd mention him because if he does play, he still may be an option, but longer term, probably contingent upon how long Darcy is out for, if he is out. But he is named as a test at the moment.
Yeah, he was definitely my first when we started looking at rookies and downgrade options. He was like my first go-to as soon as I heard Darcy had the injury and was potentially out for a little bit, just because he's on the bubble, can do the 60s. Again, pretty lucrative role, some pinch hit in the ruck, got some defensive time, some forward time. I'll swing him wherever he's needed. So some variability in his scoring, but again, on the bubble, defensive rookie, which does tend to help when we're really now banking on Carroll being renamed with all the injuries at your club. It'll happen. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, he was my first go-to. But again, with Darcy being a test, if Darcy is not playing this week, it is confirmed that he will be good to go next week. So I just don't think you can go there.
Yep. No, exactly right. Now, another guy who I didn't even know was playing. This is how much I know about this bloke. And a very unique name, more unique than me. Josiah Delana or Delana. I don't know. Is he actually real? Who knows? But he's a midfielder. 99.1K. Break even of -4. And guy incognito. He hasn't done much to impress in his first 2 games with scores of 26 and 37. Was also the sub in his second game. And with the likes of Bedford, Darcy Jones and Cogs all in line to return, we can all but bank on him being one of the omissions this coming round. But thought we'd mention him because those of you out there listening, tuning in, watching, you're probably thinking, but hey, there's another guy on the bubble. Is he really a guy on the bubble? We don't know who he is. Is he even real?
He's not real. The only benefit he has is I'm fairly sure he's a 99 basement rookie.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is.
That's all he's got going for him. That's literally it. You might as well grab Daywicks. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. Exactly right. Now, bit of a segue there. Very nicely done by you. Didn't even know it, but you've done it because there are a number of players coming off one game that some are considering bringing into their sides early due to the lack of quality players on the bubble this week. So we'll briefly outline them and we'll give a more comprehensive write-up next week when they are on the actual bubble. Now, first up, let's start with Archer Daywicks. Now, he played exclusively as a forward, scoring 33, kicked a goal. But does he keep his spot? We'll have to wait and see. So perhaps not the safest to go early on. And I'll grab your thoughts on all these players afterwards as well. We have, and especially one player here that you'll know very intimately about. Cooper Simpson from Freo scored 53 in his first game, playing largely off defence and along the wing. Hopefully he can keep his spot, but maybe one to make way once O'Driscoll does return. Thomas Sims from Richmond, tall ruckman forward, scored a 45 on debut, kicked a goal and impressed. Unsure of his job security at this stage, so one to monitor before his third game. I probably wouldn't go early on him. And Jed Buse. Now, he came back into the side after a long layoff due to what I think was finger surgery and scored an out-of-the-box 95, which I can't remember the last time he's done that, where he's scored above 50, because he has averaged around about 50-odd across most of his career every season. So wouldn't be one to bring in thinking especially that he's going to be a cash cow, because he won't be. But for me, I'm a little bit sort of questioning, and it's a question that you could answer here about his job security, because he has been best 23, but if Tom Stewart does return, is he still best 23?
I don't think so. And this is the thing. We've seen him come in when Humphreys and Stewart are both out. You would assume that they're going to stick with O'Sullivan, considering he actually has been quite impactful with his spoils in contested mark contests. He's an absolute guy. Like, he works so hard for the ball. They're not taking him out. Like, Chris Scott loves the work ethic of his players. And that's probably why he's very keen to get Tom Stewart back in, because we know what Tom Stewart does. Irrespective of his injuries, he'll still go hard at the ball, which is what Geelong's currently missing. So, one, Stewart or Humphreys will probably come in and make way from Buse. Yes, Buse has been best 23 before. He is actually very suited to the Geelong play style, obviously being in the system for quite some time now. If there weren't other people coming back in outside of Humphreys and Stewart's, he may be a good shout on the bubble, not to go early. And the other thing to factor in is not only is he not on the bubble, he's also 175K, I believe.
Yep.
So you're paying up for someone that probably had an anomaly score of 95 due to the outs, which Stewart is probably coming back in. I believe Humphreys may get named. I don't think it's a 2-week concussion protocol for him as of yet. That wait for team sheets for confirmation, of course. But yeah, even if Humphries is still out and Buse maintains a role, I assume it's a straight swap.
I love it. Very nice insight there, and that's why you're the man. You're the go-to man when it comes to all things Cats. So, bit of a Pandora's box there that you've opened and unearthed for those people tuning in. If you need some bit of good oil about all things Cats, hit up.
There's an asterisk there because there is the Chris Scott.
Oh,
factor.
Of course, always is. No one knows what that man is doing. I don't think he himself knows what he's doing half the time. Bit of split personality disorder of some sort. Who knows? But of those other guys, if you were to rank them, or maybe someone that you would maybe take a little bit of a punt on if you wanted to go early, who would you go early on? Is it Cooper Simpson, Busey just spoke about, Archer Day Wicks, or Sims?
Probably Simpson just because of the role. Any defensive role for a rookie, I believe, is probably a lot stronger than a forward role, such as a Daywicks. Sims, we're not entirely sure where he fits into the team just yet. We know he can technically be the second ruck behind Nake to help chop up, which we did see a little bit of. But again, Richmond, you never know what's going to happen. It's really tough. I don't actually mind Sims all too much because of that deeper pair of the ruck forward, which can come in handy depending on how you're structured with your team. But again, the only one I would even consider going early on is Simpson. But again, you'd really want to wait one more game to see one, if he's got, it might just be, you might bring him in this week. Next week is his last week, and then bang, he's dropped for, O'Driscoll or whoever comes in. So talk to your Freo supporters that know more about the ins and outs of the club. Damo from the footy mailbag is probably a really good one to go annoy. Even though we all annoyed him about Erasmus last week, go annoy him about Simpson this week. He'll love it. I've been throwing his name around because he loves the conversation, and I'm assuming I'll get a message soon telling me to stop it.
Hey, he laps it up. He loves it. Loves any opportunity talking about Freo. So yeah, he is a good resource, fountain of knowledge when it comes to Freo as well. Let's move on now to the next segment. Let me whack on this hat and let me say to you, good sir, that I'm the captain now.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
And I think anyone could be the captain now, really, after what Neale produced on the weekend, because that was absolutely shite. Absolutely shite.
You could captain the Jed Hughes.
He actually scored more than Neale on the weekend. I can't believe that. That is just so ridiculous. Shame. I need a bell prop here to bell. But in I'm the Captain Now, we chat about, of course, VC and C options, those which are the top that you should consider. And we have scrounged through the data and found the best options for you to consider and narrowed it down to our top 5. So we have first up, Maxi Gawn. Now, Miso Gorney is in unstoppable form, scoring 174, 198, and 142 in his past 3 games. And he now faces Brisbane, who may be without McInerney due to injury. So it'll be Gawn versus potentially Fort. And he has scored 138, 79, and 215 against them in his past 3. And also, Cherry was able to score 186 against the Lions on the weekend. Could this be another blinder for the big bearded one? Do you own the big bearded one, Miso?
I do own him,
jealous.
Miso Gorney. It is is very tempting. We'll be watching the news very heavily to see if they rest the main man himself and give Fort the reins for a week, which is a very shocking week to give him the reins. Let's be honest. It's not doing any favours to Fort's confidence, but alas, giving confidence for us in our captaincy this week. If I were to captain Gawn, which I may consider if I don't get Sherry in this week, that'd be the 4th week running that this man has copped the armband and delivered.
Exactly. That's the thing. Well, why would you change up on a good thing? Never change a good thing.
Exactly.
So, yep. Speaks for itself. Exactly right. Next up, we have Jack Sinclair. So he faces a juicy matchup against the Eagles, who are the 3rd easiest matchup to designated kickers and have conceded bulk points historically to hard-running defenders, including 145 to Martin, 130 to Ash, 148 to Whitfield, and 136 to Zorko. Sinks has scored 140, 102, and 116 as well in his past 3 games against the Eagles and could be in for a sizable score. So one to consider.
Definitely one to consider. I dare say for those that are trading him in, back him in even more, give him the armband.
That's it. Exactly.
Essentially my fallback captain as well. So very, very likely to have a spike score.
Exactly, and I am likewise as well. We have that man you spoke of, Tristan Cherry. And like Gawn, Cherry has been in incredible form recently with scores of 144, 158, 146 and 186. Now faces Nank the Tank, who gives up the second most points to opposition ruckman, and Cherry scored 144 against him last year as a taste for what he could replicate. So he's kind of my Max Gawn for me in my team, and I stupidly went off him and went for Neale. Had I only stuck with him. And now I've just learnt my lesson. So I am now proclaiming that Cherry is the captain, vice captain. He's the mayor. He's the president. He's every title. He's the chef. He's the sous chef. Just give him everything. Hand him the keys to the city.
Literally. It's literally the key to the city at this point. And again, coming up against Nank, geez, if you own both Gawn and Tristan Cherry, like I might by the end of team sheets and trades this week, man, it's going to be hard to pick one. Oh. It's going to be so hard, especially if it's Gawn versus Fort versus Cherry versus Nank. They're both going to pop off regardless.
Yeah,
one of them has to cop the VC because they're unfortunately too close to really have a viable VC and C, or else you're going to have to be on watch on your phone and make a call at 3/4 time, unfortunately. But again, if you own Gawn or Cherry this week, you really can't go wrong with a nice VC if you have a Sinclair that you can back up. Alternatively, very safe C option for either options.
Yep, exactly right. And we also have in the same game Harry Sheasel, the good old Shees Nuts. He faces Richmond and scored 105 and 136 in the only two encounters he has faced them in. And the Tigers are giving up the most points to opposition designated kickers as well. So this could be a big one for Shees to go nuts.
Yeah, and this is the thing is we're looking for that spike score again, and we're hoping the roll just stays the same. We don't want to see any diversion from what we've seen previously over the last little bit. You get really nice matchup for Shees Ball to get some good possessions and some good scores. So if you lack a Cherry, you lack a Gawn, I'm very scared for you, first and foremost. But again, Sheasel, probably a very safe option if you wanted to go there.
Exactly. Nice little fallback option. And we have, to round things out, Dane Zorko. So he's coming off a whopping 166, as we spoke about, and now comes up against the Ds, who are a great matchup, as they are the second easiest matchup to opposition designated kickers. His last three scores against the Ds are 115, 116, and 139 as well. So not too bad there from good old man, Dane Zorko.
Can he do it again? Can he do it again? We've seen him go in purple patches. He did the 130 run for the first three. Then he had quiet patches. Are we now about to see another spike score patch? The consideration I will only make for this sort of choice, if Coleman is named, maybe stay clear just in case. Only give him the VC. Do not captain him. We'll go from there. But otherwise, Zorko, I mean, he's in that pig state. He's pig mentality at this point.
Yeah, exactly right.
Words there, which will easy little plug for the man himself. But no, I think he's a really left field VC pick this week because there are a lot of clear, obvious ones. So if you want to diverge a little bit and grab potentially a big spike score like we did see last week, fine option.
Yep, exactly. And that's basically, I mean, I wouldn't be confident in doing it, especially as a straight up captain. But, for him, it's all about matchup. And, coming off a, really good score in his previous game. So, got to consider him off the back of that. If you are without any of the other bigger options, which I kind of side more towards. Now, onto our captaincy head-to-head, Liam and I opted for Cherry last round. Sorry, I should say I'm reading the previous one. He opted for Gawny, which was an inspired one, with a nice 142, eclipsing the putrid output. Guess who I chose?
The Chocky.
The Chocky. Melted chocolate. The old gold I liked. As SuperCoach with DR, he mentioned that he likened him to old gold. It's that chocolate that you just don't want. And that or whatever. What's the other one that was really bad? It's like the jelly one that's always in the bottom of
Turkish Delight.
Turkish Delight, that's the one that really old.
One of my favorites. What do you mean? Disrespect.
Are you 70 years of age by any chance, maybe?
Oh, some days I feel it. I definitely do feel it.
Oh, very nice. Well, all the more like power to you. If you want to go for Chalky Neale, because if that's your penchant, the old Turkish delight.
Yeah, might as well go for Gold Seam while you're at it.
Yeah. But with Liam and I in our head-to-head, so he gets that handy win. And best yet, he actually cuts the differential down from 65 to just 4. So thank you so much for that, Chalky Neale. You've absolutely ruined me.
I did say last week I wanted to see Liam make some ground, so it's good to see that it's happening.
Yep, he's done it. He was listening. He was definitely listening. Now, Liam is first up this time around, and he said he's going with Labont, whilst I am backing in the Red Heart Cherry Pie. So he's someone that I really want in my team. Like not warm apple pie, hot cherry pie. Not something that you want to stick an appendage in. No. Channeling the old American pie. But geez, if he produces another big score, we might consider it, I reckon.
It's probably very high likelihood.
Let me just lock it in. Lock it in.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's not hot and it's just warm. Because otherwise,
that's an ER trip waiting to happen.
Exactly. Well, with that, let us round out the episode with the last segment, of course, where you come to us with questions. We come to you back with answers. It is Saul Goodman.
Wait, Jimmy, what?
It's all good, man.
So we have a question sent in from @morepointy, just his username More on X, and asks hilariously, how do you heal someone else's larynx? Of course, referencing TDK there. Maybe a bit of Vicks vapor rub. Does that work? Maybe a little bit of massage, a bit of vocal work.
Deep heat, Nurofen rub or some shit.
Yeah. Like, a bit of Ron Burgundy.
The Human Torch is denied a bank loan.
Bit of what is
this? You were Ron Burgundy last week with Capitano and Neale. You were in a glass box of emotion.
I was indeed. Unique New York, just some vocal work and get it all happening. I think it'd be fine, surely. But he says, who is the best TDK trade option that isn't Gorn or Cherry? Now, I think it probably leaves us with maybe Marshall as one of the other options. We've spoken about him and he's kind of returned to a little bit of form. But is there anyone else outside of Marshall that you would think about if you had the chance?
Not really. Marshall does have the second easiest run coming up. Again, he has 2 very tough matches after this week in both Wits and Gorn. So do keep that in consideration. But after that, it does get easier. The only other person I may even consider is maybe English.
I like that.
I would like to throw Cameron into the ring. However, he has a very tough run coming up. So it may not bode well for him. Does have a good buy, though. Easier than English's. But again, English, we've seen a spike score. Bulldogs are in red hot form. I would probably lean to English as the next viable option. And it is very potty in left field. You can't get to a Sherry, or you can't get to a Gorn. Again, understandably, they are expensive. Then I would probably lean into English, if not Romo.
Yep. English has been in some pretty good form. I mean, he obviously struggled against Wits, but every ruckman struggles against Wits. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that 88 that he scored. 166 against Port. Very good. And he's had a few, scores in the hundreds there. So not too bad. And without Darcy there as well, who was kind of, I guess leeching a bit of ruck time as well at various stages. The upside is pretty good. Faces the old man in Goldstein at the Dons this coming weekend as well. So that will bode well for him. We'll run him ragged around the ground, especially. So
and with Darcy out as well, that also gives him the spike score ability of kicking goals, which is where we saw that massive spike score come from.
Very good point. It does open up that extra role that he had when he had that spike season, which seems so long ago now. But do like it. Well said. So that brings us to the end of the show. But before we go, don't forget, of course, to follow us on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. On Twitter, @supercoach_edge, @DamoJo88. You can find myself, Liam. You can find it at Liam Evans_95, Facebook, Insta, TikTok. Just search Supercoach Edge and you'll find us there. And Rookie, where can the good people find your fine self on YouTube?
So they can find me at Rookie Coach AFL. Sweet and easy. Again, maybe a late in next week, maybe a late out if Liam decides to be a late in. We're going to pull some Chris Scottery around here.
Yes.
To get Liam back in this nice warm seat, which I've worn for 2 weeks now.
I know
So,
it's kind of molding to you a bit more.
It is. It is. I hope there's probably going to be some extra space in this seat because, yeah, pretty comfy.
That's what we want. That's what we want to see. That's good. As long as you're comfortable, that's the main thing. And coming off the bench, you are more than welcome. So with that, thank you so much for jumping in last second. It was literally last second again. And I've pulled you away from quality time with your better half and out of bed as well, because we are recording a little bit late at the moment. So really do appreciate the time you've put into that. And always great to have you on for a bit of a yarn. Pre-show as well, post-show. You are an absolute legend. So again, those people tuning in, go and check out his work. Does some incredible stuff. As videos on captains, on your trades, which everyone loves to see as well. Very, very much your own team talk, which I love to see personally as well. I have a look around and see what moves other people are making and kind of helps inform my decisions as well. So it's a really nice resource. So go and check it out.
Yeah, I mean, the last video I did was 45 minutes long. So we go into a lot of depth in this week because there are a lot of scenarios. So if you're wanting some informed decisions and then some really odd picks and strategies and then just some fun times, so definitely come suss out the channel. Again, the main bringer of attention, which Damo himself has made an appearance on, is the After Dark streams that happen every Saturday, where we get our therapy for SuperCoach, the loves and the hates, but we also have a very fun time just to take a break from the stress of SuperCoach as well.
Exactly. Just have a bit more fun, bit of downtime, let your hair out, all that sort of stuff. So really do enjoy it. And with that, thank you so much for joining us yet again, Rook. You're an absolute gun. Best of luck for the coming round 10. We're getting very, very close to the buys setting upon us. They're on the horizon. We can see them. They're getting closer. So keep that in mind with your trades. But best of luck for the weekend. And we'll catch you next week to do it all again, potentially, maybe with yourself. We'll wait and see, Rook. But thanks for joining us, mate.
Trifecta.